Antonia Matthew is from England. She's lived in Bloomington since 1968 and is a member of the Five Women Poets. They have published 3 chapbooks and put out a CD. In 2019, her play Homefront, about growing up in England during World War II and its lasting effects, was performed as a radio play produced by the Writers Guild. She is currently working on a novel set in 1940s England.
This is a series of short prose pieces I've written since we were asked to stay in place. Neighborhood walks in the time of plague. Nest. In the high fork of an old, barely leafed out sycamore tree is a partially exposed hawk's nest. Many days I have visited it and seen nothing. Then one day I see what could be a head the size of an adult bird. Today, a week or so after, I see a hawk fly off the nest and 2 small, hardly feathered heads appear above the nest's rim. As I watch them, the hawk returns, settles on the nest. I leave, not wanting my watching to be a discouragement. Magnolia. This magnolia is so old that its branches bend over the sidewalk, the tips resting in the grass beside the street. All spring it is in full blossom, and for many days I walk to stand under this arch, this dome, this profusion of luminous purple-pink. Then, as they must, the petals drop and leaves appear. But this year they are small, dried up, edged with brown, and on the highest branches there seem to be no leaves at all. Worried, wanting to help, I leave a note under the owner's doormat. I know of an arborist who could come and look at your tree. As I walk on, I notice near the front door a stone marker saying, "At this spot, 100 years ago, absolutely nothing happened." Perhaps this humor will heal the tree, I think. A week later, when I walk by, behold, large, plush green leaves are growing, the dry leaves fallen. Puzzling, but a reason to rejoice. Birds. On one alley that I walk down, it's a busy place, and it may get busier. At the corner is a crowd of tall sunflowers. They've bloomed, but the seeds aren't ripe yet. When they are, I look forward to goldfinches descending on them. There are usually crows a little further up, drinking out of muddy puddles that seem always to be there. The crows caw at me as I walk up the alley, flying away at the last moment to join a larger crow in a nearby tree. One day, I see only the large crow. It's on the ground, shaking and pecking at something. I approach slowly, think that I see fur. Looking up, the crow sees me and leaves, carrying its find, flying beyond the nearest tree. I'm glad to move further up to what I call the sparrow bush, because whenever I approach it, a cloud of sparrows flies out, disappearing into an old, tumble-down gray shed across the alley. Rabbits. Near the middle of the alley is a grassy backyard. It has a stone barbecue and a falling-apart white garden shed. It used to have tall, thick grass that shook in the breeze. Rabbits gathered in the grass, crouching, their ears sticking up like brown tulip leaves, or they emerged from the hedgerow to nibble at the edges of this small prairie. Then, one day, I find it mown. No rabbits, and not just this once, but every time I come by. Pig. Near the end of the alley, just past what was the rabbit field, is a vast pig. She's not always out, but today she is, lying in a near corner of the yard against the fence, a monster of a Vietnamese pig. Her name is Dottie. She has short, thin, matchstick-like legs, gray, hairy body, jowly head, slit eyes, tiny tail, and when she comes out of her pig house, she staggers as she moves from water to food bowl to snuffling in the grass, till she lowers herself into the ground cover and sleeps. Surely, captured too young to remember the Vietnamese jungle, a hot, humid day is not familiar, not comfortable. So she enjoys days like this, with sun and a breeze. She lies relaxed, not even snoring, her eyes closed. Goats and hens, my favorite place. It's around the corner from the pig, and I visit here when I leave the alley. A baby goat has been born a month or so earlier, and I look around for it first, but don't see it. It's coffee and cream colored like its mother. There's also a large black and white goat. The two adult goats often sit on top of the old picnic table, but the baby goat will come over to the fence and look at me, close enough that I can see its strange goat eyes with the dark rectangular pupils. Then it bounces off. It's learned to climb onto the picnic table, to nudge its way between the two goats and nurses its mother, then jump down and bounce around the yard again, scattering the hens. These hens are not the usual run-of-the-mill brown farmyard hens. They are different colors, cream, light brown, and black. The feathers of the cream and light brown ones are outlined in black, making them look like scales. They have erect tails that fan out like a peacock's and feathery rumps. The black one is my favorite. It is a deep black with iridescent turquoise sheen. It struts slowly around the yard. Today, as I watch and the owner appears, we say hello and I ask about the baby goat. She tells me, oh, it's gone to another farm. And when I ask about the black hen that I haven't seen recently, she remembers, a friend took it away. I nod. Her hands are full of small plants in black plastic containers, and I don't want to keep her here talking. I say goodbye. We both smile. The Grove. In walking the neighborhood, I find some treasures hidden away, like a lot beside a creek. It's a small woodland with a circle of thin saplings in the front, tall trees on the sides, all the way back to the fence, and a taller redwood. It's shaded with green undergrowth, and it's still and peaceful. In England, on ridges of the bare chalk hills of the southeast, are circles of old trees. Those places are sacred. Rituals were carried out there. To walk inside those circles is to step into a stillness of another place. Simply standing in the street and looking into this small woodland quietens me. My yard, my own yard, the tree wilderness that it is, has two big trees in the front, a many-branched sweet gum and a maple, and under them volunteer dogwoods, tulip trees, oaks, persimmons, rose of Sharon, and flowering creepers. In the back along the alley there's a row of hemlocks, and within the yard a redbud, two oaks, one of which I planted, along with a pine tree and a black cherry. There's a western hawthorn, a dogwood, a forsythia bush, and one maple that volunteered the year I moved in and is now 17 years old. There are bird feeders that attract the usual backyard birds: sparrows, cardinals, chickadees, finches, a wren that sings loudly from the ivy over the garden shed, and a special delight, small woodpeckers. Of course, there are other bully birds, blue jays, grackles, starlings, cowbirds, but they can't get through the cages around the feeders. There's other wildlife, squirrels doing their acrobatic leaps from thin branch to thin branch, then trying to break into the bird feeders, rabbits emerging from under the forsythia bush, and the occasional possum, even a skunk. But the groundhog that lived by the brush pile moved on. Hawks can no longer swoop through the yard to snatch a bird leaving the feeder, because the trees have grown long branches over the yard. Deer wander through often enough to have worn paths in the ground cover. If only they didn't eat the violets that surprise me each spring around the dogwood. My yard is for me a place to step out of the world, to sit, just be, whether it's filled with movement, the leaves turning in the wind, reflecting the light, the rain falling, or still, the trees always watchful. In this pandemic time, I look for comfort, delight, wherever I can, and the neighborhood and my small yard are places where I find these. The poet Jericho Brown wrote, "Whatever moment you find yourself in, that is the moment you are meant to be."